All right, it's 5:30, time to call the commission meeting to order. Would you please stand as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you for all those in attendance tonight. Moving along, gentlemen, do you have any amendments or changes according to the agenda before we adopt it?
I do not, Mr. Mayor.
I've reviewed the agenda and have no modifications.
All right, so I entertain a motion for the adoption.
I move that we adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carried. Item 2, appointments. A, Economic Development Advisory Board. 1 resignation for a term ending January 1st, 2024. There were 5 applications received, and I move to appoint J.D. Cox to the Economic Development Advisory Board for an unexpired term ending January 1st, 2024. Do I have a second?
I second it.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion carried. Thank you.
Who was it that you appointed?
J.D. Cox.
He wasn't on the list, was he?
That's the application I emailed you that we got.
Oh,
Right.
Right after the packets went out.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
That's where I was confused.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay. Item 3, consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, moving to items for commission action. Item A, consider a recommendation from the Planning Commission to approve a conditional use permit for storage and warehousing of non-hazardous products in a C2 commercial service district in the South 40 of lots 1 through 5, Block 52, original City of Independence, Montgomery County, Kansas, commonly known as 105 South 4th Street, Independence, Kansas.
Mayor, the Planning Commission held a public hearing on September 7th and approved this on a 7-to-1 vote. There was some information that was not originally provided that the applicant has provided, which you have a copy of. And I also emailed you relating to the site plan and things like that. And the applicant is here if you have any questions of him.
Okay. So what I'm looking at here and reading at this time, Kelly, what you've given to us, these 5 statements here about the site plan, drawing at an appropriate scale, all this. So this is what is current now, or what?
Yes,
what
he
he's
added
looking at.
the site plan he originally provided with his application didn't include some of the details like the driveway,
Okay.
and he didn't provide the contours, which we actually provided for him because we have a map that shows the elevations.
Okay.
And then some of the questions on here that it didn't relate to it, I had him go through and answer each one, and so that's what that is.
Okay.
And then also David reviewed it, the revised site plan, and then signed the certification from the building department that we did not previously have on the application, which I provided a copy of.
Okay, but there will be a contractor or developer involved in this?
If this is approved, then he is going to contract the building. He'll go through, work with David on getting, and Tyler on getting a building permit and go through that process.
Okay,
And he'll have to meet all the codes. They'll make sure that he's in compliance. The planning, or the Board of Zoning Appeals granted him some variances, which, so that's been done.
okay.
Because that doesn't come to this board, it goes to the, district court if anybody, challenges it. So, that's where we're at.
And then I understand, initially, there was not a plan for water or sewage for the building, but now that there may be later, is that the case?
Initially, he indicated he did not want to have water and sewer in the building. Now
Okay.
he's not sure. And if he does do that, he'll work with David on the building permit side and get that addressed. And because the main sewer line runs in the alley, there's a good chance he's going to have to relocate or make sure that building is not over that sewer line, and there'll be some things that would have to be worked out with that.
In addition to the sewer line, is there anything else in that area that the building's going to cover that would be, that have been noted, or that it was just strictly
Nothing
the
else
sewer line?
that I'm aware of, but that's something, and David probably can answer that better than me. That's something they will review all of that before they issue the building permit. Is that correct, David?
Yes, his architect and engineers will send us stamp plans with all of those things that go through the plan review side. That's an enormous expense, $6,000. So often people do this type of plan, get the approval, because if it doesn't make it through zoning, they're out money.
Right.
So
Okay, I understand.
that's why it's done in building, because they have the approval to do it, but he'll still have to go through that process, and we will still look at all of his stamp drawings to ensure nothing's being covered, that meets the 10-year flood. All of those things will have to be signed off before he's allowed to get a building permit.
Okay, I was wondering because when I looked at the drawing, I was thinking, I don't remember seeing, in the short time I've been here, anyone presenting something like that.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
This is what they were gonna
This,
build off
at
of.
this side, because
Right.
if he went to the zoning board and he was denied, he's out $5,000-$6,000.
Right,
Once he gets past that step, now it's working with the building department, who now requires that in order to get your building permit. We're gonna require those stamp plans and his engineers to provide all those details. We'll check for all utilities and make
Okay.
sure everything is in compliance
okay,
before we issue that building permit.
all right, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for David?
I have none.
It might be something that we need to review and modify the requirements for the application instead of a full survey, at least locating the property line and the boundaries so you'll know where the setback is or if there's any
I agree, Commissioner.
encroachments.
And I think
But
Kelly's zoning board also agreed, we need to, it used to be all a combined department, and now it's,
Yeah, the same person used to do the zoning and the building code thing, so I think that's why it was originally
Yeah.
like that. And the planning commission would like to look at a text amendment to amend that to be more related to how we're actually doing it today.
yeah, some of it though, if it's required on the permit, then it's required to be submitted. But when you look at some sites, like the Dollar General, if they hadn't provided the survey, you wouldn't have known that the site is going to be 9 feet higher on the west edge than it originally was. And that kind of impacts land use when you
yeah.
look
Tyler
at the-
did do we were out,
Yeah.
we didn't just look at his drawings.
Yeah.
Tyler did go on site to this location and did some,
Yeah. But I mean, if we're going to change the requirements,
yeah, I
we need
agree,
to-
Leonard.
we need to be
Yeah, we need to
cautious so
be,
we don't
exactly.
narrow them down too far because land use, if there's any drainage valleys, this site is exceptional that it's relatively flat. But,
Yes,
you got to look at the extreme case to
yeah,
make sure you're covering enough that you don't run into
absolutely.
to problems. But
Yeah.
with, considering land use, it's a little different that, like requiring where the utilities are located.
Yeah,
That's a construction
absolutely.
issue that you can
No, I
address
agree.
later.
They need to be a little thoughtful how they do this text amendment, and
Yeah, and just modify the requirements are pretty much copied in the ordinance to the
Right.
application, but when you start looking at this type of project, it does get extreme to require that up front. So, I have no questions about the information that was resubmitted.
Clarifying question then, the text amendment that the planning and zoning is talking about reviewing, did they set some kind of a time frame for that correction?
They want to start discussing it probably at their next meeting, so what they'll do is probably set the official public hearing, because they need to initiate a hearing before we do a text amendment. And so that'll start that process.
As they identify these things, then they promptly move into the public or setting a public hearing and making those changes, right?
Yeah, it takes
Once it's
a little-
identified, then
Yeah.
it should be moved on quickly, is all I'm saying.
Yeah,
And what you could look at is maybe a group of projects, have a residential or some conditional use permit that would apply there, like daycares, some of those. And then large commercial being, and this type having separate requirements. So you get all the information in the ones that need it all. But then for a smaller, a dollar size or appropriateness, set up 2 separate applications.
yeah, because the ones for like a conditional use permit for a daycare and existing structure doesn't require any drawings, because they're just in their existing structure, and it's just a land use hearing, basically.
Does it use the same application?
Yeah, we have one application.
So then it has the same requirements if it's on the application.
Yeah,
So
but
that
if
could
they're
be
not,
one.
if they're not doing construction,
Yeah.
then there isn't any, drawings.
Maybe add that as a remark on the,
Yeah, what we have done in the past on those is just had them put NA on that
yeah.
section.
It's hard to have one application serve as a blanket for every condition.
Yeah,
Then,
yeah, we just
so-
don't want them to have to look for multiple applications to do a conditional use to, so we gotta figure out the best way to do that, but you're right.
All right, if there's no further questions, I entertain a motion on this.
I move to accept the recommendations from the Planning Commission and adopt a resolution approving a conditional use permit for storage and warehousing of non-hazardous products in a C2 commercial services district in the south 40 feet of lots 1 through 5, Block 52, original City of Independence, Montgomery County, Kansas, commonly known as 105 South 4th, Independence, Kansas.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Item B, consider confirming changes to the final design and construction documents for bidding 1916 City Hall and Fire EMS.
Hey, Mayor, we need to check. They're saying they cannot hear us, so
David, I can hear now.
can you hear now? Okay.
Yeah.
Can
Yes,
Travis and them hear?
I
Yeah,
don't,
we just started hearing about 5 minutes ago, so we're good.
Okay.
okay,
All right. We're
I
back
don't
on.
see Travis on the call.
Okay. I think we're good now, Mayor.
Okay.
You have Vance and McCown Gordon on the phone, gentlemen, to help you with this.
Okay, this, I did get an email about the ventilation, and that has been ordered, and they're saying that's a 2 to 3 week time frame for that to be delivered. Vance?
So Jake or McCowan Gordon, somebody, can you answer that? I believe that's what I understand as well, but Mr. Mayor, I'm not involved in the in the actual procurement of the equipment.
Okay.
Yeah, Vance, it's Travis, and I'm actually here with Jake, so we're under one name, under Jake's name. So, yeah, I did respond to that. We are looking at 2 to 3 weeks to procure the equipment, and we're finalizing a schedule with the subcontractor that'll be performing the mechanical work. So that's the latest update on that. And then what we're going to do is, basically, once we get delivery confirmation, is we'll put together a specific schedule for that work, and then deliver that to the city and the commission for information.
All right, good, thank you. I'm glad to hear that information. And we're looking at today some of the comments that were made at the last time we were together concerning this project, of some changes that were highlighted. And, well, I just lost my page, I'm sorry. There we go. Some of those concerned an elimination of parking on the north, and we were leaving the payment drop box where it currently is now. Some other modifications that were on there, that when I looked at this drawing, it appeared that all the questions we had and asked about that they had become part of this plan. Commissioners, do you see anything else on there that we talked about that wasn't a part of this?
Well, the text on the drawing was so small. Was that the same drawing, or was it a revised drawing you gave us in the packet?
Vance, is the one that you sent me with your email?
Yes, Commissioner, the drawing that we sent highlighting the questions that we had was the same drawing. And I certainly apologize if my questions don't really rise to the level of a commission decision. They really had to do less to do with the commission approval of what happened in the last meeting, but more to do to make sure we were focusing our efforts correctly. And obviously, while the commission always has the final say in improving these projects, we were bringing these forward, making sure that we were headed in the right direction. And so the drawing simply restated what we had heard in the commission meeting. And I'm certainly willing to run through and talk about each of those. We are working on them with our civil engineer to make sure that they are answered. I guess one thing that I would say, honestly, the project is a little more challenging when we have questions of this level of detail that maybe don't rise to the level of a commission as a body making the decisions. In the past, we certainly have worked with where we have a representative of the commission working with, for example, David and Kelly on a day-to-day basis so that they can provide direction to both Trainer HL as well as McCowan Gordon. And I didn't know whether this is an example of one of those where it might be better if the commission would like to help speed this along and have a representative work with David and Kelly to try to answer these, because they're pretty simple and they do relate to the discussion, and but I'm certainly happy to run through them with you in more detail.
You provided a list. We can just go down through each one if you want, or if you're looking at us confirming what we talked about. Some of the site items, of course, is a civil item, but the engineer needs to work out. But one of the things concerning the ADA parking, the site slopes to the west, and the farther west you put the handicap parking, the longer sidewalk or ramp you're required to address the issue of shortening the distance for a disabled person to travel to the building, is just move it to the east. And another item would be possibility of changing elevation at the alley. We're going to have to resurface. Are we looking at, Kelly, resurfacing the alley because of utility cuts?
Yes, we'll have to do that. So they added that in with the parking lot, and that was the $500,000 estimate.
Okay, so, if you're gonna change the elevation, or if you're gonna resurface the alley, you've got the opportunity to raise the elevation at the alley to cut some of the height distance from finished floor to finished grade to shorten the sidewalk. One thing, we had talked about the difference in a ADA ramp and a sloping walk, and definitely the sloping walk is ideal. We want to avoid going to a designated ramp with walkers and some disabilities. It makes it more difficult to navigate, but the length of traveling from the car into the building, and then the distance once you get in the building. So anything we can do to reduce that travel distance would be beneficial. So, and I know we had talked, Vance, about you need to know what we're planning in the alley because that affects all your dimensions and elevations along there. So it's something I think we need to have your civil review and see what's going to work for your needs there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Understanding that the alley will be repaved, even if it's the city repaving it, what we can do is coordinate the spot elevations that we need, and it appears from our initial review we can reduce from the 105-foot travel distance of that sloping walk with some changes in elevation down to about 76 feet of total sloping walk. So there is quite a reduction for us to make these changes, as long as we understand that modifications can be made in the alley and the pavements.
Yeah, I think that, if you're disabled, that's a significant improvement for getting from the car into the building to conduct business, or even a staff that's becomes disabled or that is hired that could utilize that parking area. The other items, add additional handicap parking space, that kind of goes along with what we've talked about, eliminating the proposed utility bill pay stall on the south. That goes hand in hand with that too. Leave the existing utility pay drive-through box on the north and eliminate proposed 7 enforcement parking stalls. The width of the existing drive, if you utilize that for the parking, I think it's almost wide enough for 6 stalls. Would that be beneficial?
So what we are showing on that plan that is on the screen is you'll see that there are 4 stalls designated for the law enforcement, the police, adjacent to the building, as well as allowing the aisle to go into the sally port that's adjacent to them. And in fact, as we've looked at it, we're able to have an access aisle between 2 of those parking spaces leading directly to the door that exists in that apparatus bay. Okay. And so it works out really well in that they at least have 4 stalls adjacent to the building.
Okay. Yeah, so that could accommodate the parking access and also a drop box.
Correct.
Yeah. There was confirmation with Evergy and Atmos on locations of transformer and meter, gas meter.
Mayor, what latest I've heard is that gas meter is going to be, for the county, is going to be moved over against the county in that ADA stall, and they're going to move their stalls down.
Okay.
Evergy, we will be responsible where the pad mount is, of making sure the county's service is extended. And they informed me today that they are going to put a large laminated pole at the southwest corner of the property there by the alley, that brings the power across the street to the city property, and then they will be underground to the pad mount where it's located on the plans. So there'll be a large pole, laminated pole at the corner of our property, Vance. And that pole is required because overhead service still goes to the bank.
Okay.
And our gas will, since that is all being exposed and opened up, Atmos would prefer to put our gas meter against our building. So when it's opened up, they said they could come in and run the line over to the building wherever Vance decides he wants that meter. They would prefer it not to be in the alley.
Was that about all the site type questions at 1916 City Hall, Vance?
Yes, Mr. Commissioner, that is correct. Those were the issues that we just wanted to make sure that we were coordinating and heading in the right direction. I think that it's pretty clear that they do correspond with what we talked about last time, but we just wanted to make sure that as we were working with city staff that we were all on the same page.
For those of you that are not familiar with what a laminated pole looks like, there's one on the corner of the intersection of Peter Pan Road and West Main. It's on the Orchland corner, and that's what a laminated pole looks like. It looks like it's laminated. If you're curious as what one looks like, there is one there. So the city will basically be forming a concrete pad for that pad mount transformer to sit on, and then Westar will come in underground with the primary, and then the city will have a certain number of conduits that will run back into the building, and then they'll provide the service wire on the load side of that, so Westar can hook the load side up on the transformer, and then Westar will be responsible for setting metering and all that part. So we'll just basically be conduits, wire, and a concrete pad. And Vance, are we putting in an additional conduit as a backup or a spare? Do you see that or no?
So we haven't talked about it, but that is always a wise decision. And so that is something that we can work with the civil engineer to make sure that we're coordinating with the electrical engineer as a way to have that additional future entrance into the building. We certainly will want to coordinate the location and the size of this new laminated pole that David just mentioned, right, so that it corresponds with where the parking or paving begins and ends. Because as we worked with our civil engineer from the last meeting, the plan that you see there shows basically 5 stalls plus that utility drop area. Obviously, with that going away, we now will have 7 stalls total. 2 of those will be accessible, and we just want to make sure that that all fits with that new pole location at the southwest corner for that new laminated pole.
Okay, Evergy should be able to give you specs on that laminated pole as far as to the dimensions and all that. So,
Will it be on the south side of the alley, David?
It will be, I believe, she said it was on our side. Because if you look across the street, the pole that they're coming across the street is on the north side of that alley over there by, what do we call that park?
Gazebo Park.
Gazebo Park.
Oh, okay.
So that's where the service is coming across 6th Street at. So it comes straight across to the north side of our property. And she sent me everything. I've got a copy, picture, everything to send on to Vance. She may have had it marked, and I can't remember, Leonard, if it was on our property or if it's in the right-of-way area where that pole's going. Joanne may have marked it. I know she sent me pictures of what the pole would look like.
So if she's already got that, that'll free Vance up to do what he needs
Yes,
to do.
I have everything to send to Vance.
Oh, great, great,
So he should have it.
great.
okay.
So that was all you were wanting to clarify, right, Vance?
Yes, that is correct. Just, those are the typical kinds of issues that we run into on a day-to-day basis as we're designing the project and just wanting to make sure that we're all coordinating, especially as we talk about the repavement of the alley and being able to change the spot elevations to make sure that we can have those two accessible spaces and that the slope, you have to remember that when you're designing accessible spaces, the slope is relatively flat at those parking areas where all of us know that site slopes from east to west at a pretty good grade.
So have we really changed any of the previous motion to need to outline changes for you?
No, sir. I do not believe there's anything that has changed from the previous motion.
So okay. I don't have any questions about the items we've discussed so far.
All right, Commissioner Hayes.
A couple of quick questions clarifying some verbiage that's on our our request for commission action here, and that is indicating here that elimination of the 7 law enforcement parking stalls is not accommodated for within the current plan anymore, and the plan for law enforcement parking then would move into the parking lot north of City Hall. Would that be, I've heard conversation with regard to utilizing that parking lot for police vehicles as needing to be, have some additional security considerations. Am I clear on that? Is that correct?
Yeah, that has been discussed. David, do you remember if that's in this latest one to fence some of that in?
Yeah, I mean, very preliminary, just talking to Sean Turner about the ADA and security on that first row for what's kept in the police cars and stuff. And that's kind of where just a rough shot in the dark on that number to take care of the parking lot and the alley.
Okay. So would you, what do you call that? It's I might label that as an associated cost that's not currently in the construction cost. What would you call that cost? it's associated with the project, but it's not part of the project.
Well, it's those additional costs that David had on the spreadsheet that we sent you that are not included in that, which is like the FF&E, the control tower, the paving, some security cameras and things like that.
Yes. So, did you label that what did you call that, David? Did you call those associated costs, or did you just call that additional costs, or what did you call that?
As we're working through this process with our CMAR, they identified these are the items that are part of this project, but they are not included in the construction cost of the city. So, given back to me to start going through those and coming up with those figures of costs that would be the responsibility of the city.
Is this spreadsheet that was shared, is that the first document of that kind that you've shared with the commission, or have you had a tabulation of this value in other iterations of design?
That particular spreadsheet was provided to us by McCown Gordon, and David has been working on that, and he had been waiting for that hard surface figure to put that in there. And so, no, it hadn't been shared in a meeting yet because it was still a draft, and he still had a big piece of it to put in. And so that once we had that, then we shared that with the commission.
Part of it is you guys deciding what the concept was going to be.
Indeed, indeed. Even this move of the law enforcement parking might impact those associated
Exactly.
costs.
Yes.
And the Atmos, the additional costs for the Atmos gas meter set and such like that, that's part of the associated costs and not in the design costs.
Travis, Jake, did we put those in the construction costs, that 10,000 for the gas, or is that on our side?
That's on your guys' side.
Okay.
But it's listed in that master budget spreadsheet.
Yes.
Kind
Yep.
of above the FF&E items.
Yep. Okay. So it was above what copy you have. There's that additional 10,000 cost.
Remind me, please, Kelly, how you labeled that communication when you sent it to me. I am trying to pull up that spreadsheet now, and somehow I've either misplaced it or I don't know what I'm supposed to call it.
Okay, just a minute. Draft estimate of city costs for
found it.
1916 City Hall and Fire and EMS.
I found it. Thank you. Just a quick review of that, then I see the radio tower, the furniture, fixtures, and equipment, some additional 911 associated costs, some IT and AV equipment, security systems, parking lot, and I can't readily pick out where it says the Atmos energy stuff.
It's above what I screenshotted. It's in another line item above, they said, so you don't have it with you.
Okay, all right, thank you. Very good. And so the total of that particular spreadsheet thus far, with some missing items, is $1,600,000. Am I correct?
Yes. Yes, you are correct.
Thank you.
All right, are there any, excuse me, are there any further questions for Vance and all those online now?
No, I don't have any.
And I don't have any additional questions either, so,
Mayor?
yes.
Vance had asked if you wanted to assign one of the commissioners on the design team on this. I don't know if you're interested in that or not, but he did ask that, so I didn't know if you wanted to address that or not.
in addition, it's in addition to you and David, is that what the
Yes,
request was for?
kind of like we were doing the Central Park, and then also we have that other project that we're going to be working with you on over by the school. It's up to you guys if you want to do that. You don't have to. Vance suggested it, so I just wanted to ask if that's something you were interested in.
Commissioner Kiflis, you're familiar with these designs and you'd worked with this most of your adult career. Would you be interested in serving as a liaison?
Yeah, I would. I'll do it.
Okay, all right. All right, do I need to make a motion for that or,
I mean, it's up to you.
or,
It would be good if you had consensus from the commission,
Okay,
but it's
okay.
whatever you guys, it's whatever you gentlemen would like to do.
I have no protest.
okay,
Can be
Okay.
just an appointment of some. We didn't make a similar motion to assign me to the project over.
Yeah, I
at,
can remember, honestly, but yeah, that's fine, as long as you're all okay with it.
okay. Okay, so then, Vance, so Leonard will be liaison. He'll be working with Kelly and David and you and the group on this project.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor.
And Vance, I'll still be your point of contact, and then we'll organize from there, okay?
Absolutely, I understand. Thank you.
All right, with that, if there's no further questions, I entertain a motion.
If there were no changes, do we need a motion that acknowledges changes?
I don't think we need an additional motion.
Okay. So we've already discussed this and approved it, so we will move on. All right, thank you, Vance. Item
You're
C.
welcome.
Yes, consider awarding proposal for geotechnical services for 1916 City Hall and Fire EMS.
Sorry, Mayor, we received two proposals from Anderson and GSI Engineering.
Right.
And GSI Engineering was the low bid, and I did send this to Vance and Cowan Gordon for their review, and they replied back that they felt GSI would do a good job. So therefore, I do recommend, and we did do an addendum to this to add in the park, which you see that, and it was also the low bid. There was also the option for the radio tower, but that's at a later point because talking to Hayden Tower, we're at that point, we're ready to get into an agreement contract with them. They'll bring their engineers on who will look at it and then make the recommendations where the borings would need to be. But those costs to do those additional they left a cost sheet in there, so, but at this time, we just can't say exactly where those borings would need to be, Hayden said, so.
I see.
At this time, we're just recommending for the City Hall Fire EMS and the Central Park Complex.
But the tower borings would be done the same time they come out to do, so we can save the travel time.
We might be able to work with Hayden Leonard and talk to him, but he was kind of like, until you guys are ready, at that point, were you ready to get into an agreement with us to move forward? I haven't brought on board our engineer and civil guy to look at that area and tell me exactly, so he couldn't tell me where he would need them. We may be able to visit with him and get more details to try to accomplish that.
You to just save
Yeah,
cost,
mobilization again,
mobilization.
exactly.
Yeah,
So it's definitely something we can work with them. They gave us the cost to add in a few more borings, so it is possible if we can figure out where we need to
Okay.
do it at.
I had a question about the water monitoring and the borings. Would it be beneficial, since we've got the manhole that has drainage from around the building going into it, and we've got a sump pit in the elevator, and then there's one in the old mechanical room? There's one boring in the basement that I think we're monitoring water in. Is that correct?
Yes, that is. Vance, are you still on?
No, I'm still here, yes.
Can you-
So,
I'll let you answer that.
Commissioner, Yeah, I can help answer this. Commissioner, we are actually monitoring the three hole locations, one to the north of the existing apparatus bay, one inside the existing apparatus bay, and one to the south. The hole that we're recommending that we core in the basement and hand augering down 3 feet is just to confirm that we aren't seeing water and hydrostatic pressure. Similar to what you pointed out, we certainly don't believe that's the case because of the elevator and the drain lines around it, the elevator pit and the drain lines around it that go to the sump. But this, I think it's important enough that for the few dollars to core the slab and hand auger down the 3 feet is well worth the dollars just to confirm that.
Well, that's why I was wondering where you've got the manhole outside that has exterior drainage. You could monitor water outside the building for the performance of the waterproofing future work there too, without drilling. You know, you've already got the excavation to the footing depth in that manhole. Would just need a monitor, wouldn't it, to just verify what's going on outside the building line for perimeter drain or waterproofing around the building.
Potentially, it is a challenge knowing what's feeding into that line and the flow of the water. As we talked to the geotechnical engineers that we reached out to in the civil, they felt like the simple core and hand auger would help quickly confirm conditions, and it doesn't mean that we can't monitor the flow of water through that existing manhole, but that additional core was certainly recommended by them.
Sure, you know, I don't have a problem with the additional coring in the basement. It just, the more information you have regarding water, the better off we'll be overall. So, but you can always pull the lid off and look too. So,
Yeah, I agree, yes.
Okay, that was just something I wondered if it would be beneficial to go outside the building line. But have you worked with GIS engineering before?
So I haven't, but I did reach out to others within the firm and believe they've been on at least one project in southeast Kansas for us, but I personally haven't worked with them.
Okay.
Their proposals seem very complete, very easy to read, and as David pointed out, they even itemized additional borings, which we felt like that was good information for the commission to
Yeah,
have.
very good. Very good information. Okay, well, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Hayes.
This looks like what we asked for, and I'm ready to make the motion.
All right. Then I entertain a motion.
I move to approve an agreement with GSI Engineering pending city attorney approval for the agreement for $13,155 for the 1916 City Hall and Fire EMS locations.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
You need a second.
I need a second, I'm sorry. Second.
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carried.
And I also move to approve an agreement with GSI Engineering pending city attorney approval for the agreement for $6,650 for the Central Park Sports Complex.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Excuse me.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. Item D, consider authorizing installation of ADA ramps at the intersection of 6th Street and Cottonwood Street. David?
Mayor, I was contacted by this family that lives at their residence here, and they have a disabled child that is wheelchair bound, and as he's growing older and getting bigger, it is getting difficult to get him over the curb and get into the school bus. Comes every morning to pick him up. It pulls up out front, and they're having to go over the curb. And he called asking if he could please get the curb ramp put in at his corner so that they can easily get his son to the school bus without tipping the wheelchair over. So we contacted Sean Turner, and currently they're doing a few of those ADA projects for us, Graham, and he was able to give us a price of $4,094 to get those two in, and they're out at the airport finishing something, and then they're going to be back on the 11th to finish the parking lot on South Penn, and they would get on this on the 11th right away so we could help this family out.
Okay. I had a chance to drive by the other night and take a look at that and look at the corner.
Yep.
They've got quite an extensive run
Yep.
from the house just to get to that point.
Yep.
And yeah, I can see where they're having some issues with that. So that does that seem to be a reasonable bid, $4,094?
Yes, I thought so. Plus, that makes it ADA accessible from Penn.
Uh-huh.
Somebody can get on that sidewalk and go all the way down to Fifth and Cottonwood. That would all become accessible then with curb ramps throughout that whole 3-block area.
Okay, and that will suffice for the
Yeah, makes
the
sense.
people there. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Indeed, and it looked like the curbing in that area is in pretty bad shape
Yes.
anyway, so if something is
Yeah.
due, it's due for some kind of repair or maintenance, and the sooner we can get this ramp in, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
Yes, I agree.
No, it's
Are you good?
good. I'm good with it. It's good timing, and,
Yeah.
we got a contractor lined up doing work, and the sequencing, we're very, very fortunate that
Yep.
we can just go with a change order and not have to bid and work with another contractor's schedule.
Yep.
Timing was really, really good.
Great. Great. All right. Then I entertain a motion on this.
I move to authorize installation of 2 ADA curb ramps at 6th and Cottonwood for $4,094 by Graham Construction.
I second it.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion carried. Thank you, gentlemen. Moving along, item 5, discussion. Item A, discuss downtown building inspections. And I brought this too because I thought we needed to maybe give a brief history on how this whole process started, because I know people tend to forget what's been done in the past and been approved. So kind of bringing everybody that's listening and here and that watched the meeting later, bring them up to speed, the reasoning behind this, how we got involved with it, and why it's important that we have inspections of these buildings due to the recent building collapses, the one in Florida, the one in the state of Oklahoma that I think I posted, and I think I maybe shared it with Kelly, where people had heard some strange noises coming from an abandoned building, and they barricaded it off. And it wasn't more than a few hours later, you heard a roaring sound of that building just pancaked to the ground. So it had been vacant, but evidently there were some structural issues with it. And we want to make sure that if we have downtown buildings that have some issues with it, it would be important that the business owner would be made aware of it so they could take steps to secure the building and potentially avoid having something like that happen due to a lack of just not having any knowledge that there was issues with buildings. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kelly or David, who wants to give a brief review of how all this all came about.
Well, I'll turn it over to David here shortly, but I just wanted to point out the picture on the spreadsheet is actually in downtown Independence in 2011, where we did have a wall collapse downtown, so it does happen here.
Okay.
And so I just wanted to point that out, that we have had, and we've had other ones that have been less severe, that's had some issues that were addressed before they got to this point, but, it has been a past issue. David, go ahead.
I think the one thing we want to say is, the occupied buildings for the most part are, the owners are watching, taking care of them. Our goal, and I really think the ordinance's goal, is to help protect the downtown. We're not there to be critical. We're just there on a life safety issue, see if we see anything, any potential dangers, bring those to the attention of the owner. It's also very important for our fire chief, fire safety to go through so that we know what's in there. Because when we come there for a fire and it's full of smoke, we don't know what's in there. If we have the ability to, what we call pre-plan for fires in the downtown area, that gives us a huge advantage in being able to control that fire. We know we have a large fire load in a building, or different things are of concern. Those things are noted, and the fire chief and myself are aware of those, so that we can protect the lives of our employees in that. And so, it's all about life safety. It's all about preserving the downtown. We're not there to be critical. We also understand some people don't have a lot of money. We're just there to document, help. If we see something that's very concerning or critical, we'll work through the commission and with the owner to see what resources are available to help them. We have a few buildings that Patrick, our structural engineer, has identified in the past, some areas that we watch as we go through, just to see if we have any expansion in some cracks and different things that he's noted to us. So a few things like that, but we're truly not there to be critical or anything. We just want people to work with us, but we need access to the building. And we don't want to have to go to this route, but if we do, the ordinance allows us to get an administrative search warrant. We will give the owner plenty of notice. I'll even give notice before we go to that. Please just give us access, let us check. But we can get an administrative search warrant. I think, Jeff, you said we give 24 hours notice. And then we can go in. Haven't really discussed with Jeff what happens if we show up. We can get in, but if they refuse to even come and let us in, yeah, so, but we've also been, Sean's been charged by the State Fire Marshal's office with doing most of the restaurants type of inspections that typically the Fire Marshal office does. So our fire department does have to go into those restaurants and do those reports, and he does have to submit those to the state of Kansas. So for that reason, we also need in. We have a few challenges downtown. We have a building that's in pretty serious state right now that we're kind of watching closely. So, but overall, our ultimate goal is just trying to preserve the downtown and keep it safe and work with the owners.
Thank you, David. That's what I wanted to have explained. I
Yeah.
wanted people to understand that. It's safety reasons
Yes.
that you should be open to that, and hopefully we don't have to jump through hoops to be able to enter into your facility to do an inspection. But going back to that, in the past, when previous buildings have been identified that might have some structural issues, do you know if any of those have been able to come back and use grant money that we've had available to maybe stabilize some of those existing issues, or?
Our number one enemy, which I think Leonard and probably Dean as an engineer would say, is water.
Mm-hmm.
And it's water getting into these buildings and doing damage, and the freeze and expansion and the cracks. That's what's caused the damage. And yes, quite a few of those downtown buildings. In fact, we've done 2 or 3 that are in the process right now downtown of new roofs. So that is one of the huge factors downtown is the roof and water getting in or through the windows and causing damage.
And tuck pointing too.
Tuck pointing. I would say that'd probably be our number one enemy downtown, wouldn't you, Leonard?
Right.
Probably. I'm guessing water is what we see as the most damage.
Okay.
And the maintenance on a built-up roof, an asphalt roof, if it's a smooth surface, it really needs to be coated every 5 years to
Yeah.
protect the felts. And with the cost, and you don't see it until it leaks, so it gets pretty advanced. And once
Yeah.
it gets neglected and water gets into the roof, it just migrates throughout the whole building, then decking, joists, ceilings, then into walls.
Yeah.
All right. Commissioner Hayes?
Thank you for your report, David.
Thank you.
And David, the checklist or the ordinance, if they're concerned, they can contact you and you would email them.
Yes.
You use a regular checklist.
We have a
don't you?
checklist that I would gladly mail. In fact, that's probably a good idea. When I will send a letter if somebody is refused, explaining what the process is. I will send a copy of the checklist that we use, and so that they can see exactly what we're looking for.
Because it is beneficial to have a different set of eyes looking, because you can look at something and overlook it. And the more you're looking and you see a problem in one building, it'll draw your attention to check other buildings, and not to shut them down, but trigger the owner on a point of attention before it becomes major.
Absolutely.
So that's, we're really trying to be an asset to the building owner, not the villain that's trying to cost them money.
Right.
Indeed, and just to add to that, if you can catch a problem early, it's much less expensive to deal with it than if it goes too long.
Absolutely.
So these types of inspections can, in fact, catch problems in there when they're just budding before they become an expensive repair,
Right.
right?
I agree. Yes, absolutely.
So just to clarify, you will send letters out to all the building
Yeah.
owners downtown, and so then you will include a checklist so everyone is on the same page
Yes.
as when you go in what it is you're going to look at.
So far, we're doing every Tuesday.
Okay.
And so far, we started in the 100 block of South Penn, and Sean, are we through 200 or half of 200? Next week, we'll finish the 200 block, just on Penn.
Okay.
So, and then we'll move up the first two Tuesdays in October into the 300 block. Then we come back and hit the side streets. But I send a letter about 2 weeks in advance
Okay.
saying that we're coming, scheduling a time, and if they cannot make the time, they're contacting Sean and we reschedule.
Okay.
We are flexible. We will schedule them in. And if they show up and nobody shows up, I then will send another letter saying, I need you within 10 days to contact us to schedule a time. I will include the checklist at that time.
Okay.
And tell them if we do not hear from you after 10 days, then we will set a date to do an administrative search warrant.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you for the information, David.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your comments on this.
Indeed.
Okay. Moving along, item B, discuss scheduling a joint meeting with School Board and Recreation Commission regarding Central Park Sports Complex.
And actually, we're going to ask to table this. I
Okay.
corresponded with the superintendent today, and we want to have another subcommittee meeting. We had scheduled one before with representatives of the school board, but the rec commission representatives weren't available that evening. So we want to have a meeting with all the subcommittee representatives, and then we will work on scheduling that joint meeting.
All right. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Item 6, reports. Public Works update. John, how are you this evening?
Doing wonderfully, thank you.
Good.
First off, I'll start off with the change in the report. We have added a column, and the column shows the known grant portion of the project. So just looking at it, we have roughly $34 million in projects and roughly $7 million in grants that are funding those projects. So this kind of gives an idea of where the outlay is coming from as far as what portion the city is paying versus what portion is being paid by other entities. So that's a column we've added, and that's on a project-by-project basis. And I guess starting with the end, we've got some projects that will be rolling off the list this month. This is the last time that we'll be talking about them. The airport marking project is complete, and the Main and Peter Pan Road project is complete. There's still paperwork moving back and forth on those projects, but for all intents and purposes, they're done. Next month, we have project bidding that will be taking place. The playground restroom as well as the playground sidewalk for Kittyland. We'll also be bidding the Maple Street projects. So those will be coming up for next month. So those are kind of that next stage in the project right before construction. Things are moving along quite nicely on the reconstruction of Main Street between 8th and 10th, and that's still on hold until after Neowalla, and then we'll begin construction around that time frame. On projects that where we're transitioning from one phase to the next, the water treatment plant, we went through and we reviewed the master plan. And kind of implied within that master plan was the capital improvement projects. And so we'll be beginning to look at the 2022 capital improvement projects for as suggested by the water treatment master plan. We'll be having a kickoff meeting on that relatively soon. So we've had 60% design review documents on the water line replacement, and we will be reviewing the AMI, AMR documents in order to make a recommendation to bring before the commission by the end of October on the system to move forward with the. It's two different kinds of ways to do the measurement. I think we just need to go through, look at the pros and cons of each system, and make a recommendation and bring it before the commission. And
John, on the
Yes.
automated meters, do both of them have the same type of transmission device in the cover?
In this case, I believe the transmission devices are part of the units themselves.
Okay, it's not in the lid.
Yeah. Well, one of them is a network matrix. And what it does is it essentially, the meters are talking on a regular basis back to their home. So that data that's coming in from the meters will be hitting a database, and we would be looking at kind of a near real-time water usage. Just like Evergy gives a bill that has real-time power use, we'll have that ability as well. That's with the AMI system. With the AMR, in order to get that data, you have to drive by in a truck and then or any vehicle. And a data collector will ping the meter, and the meter will respond, here's how much water I used. I think under most cases, I think most people are interested in the capabilities from the AMI system. But I want to make sure that we go through the pros and cons and we talk through cities that have operated those units to make sure that we fully understand what the pros and cons are of those systems. I think the AMI system, where it's constantly feeding data back to the city, I think it has a lot of advantages. I think it also has probably some slightly higher incremental capital cost. Again, slightly, I don't think it's a tremendous amount. But I believe it'll also have some more maintenance because you'll have to either feed back either through a cellular system, or we'll have to put up little radios that will transmit that data from the meter to the radio, again, bringing it back home. So want to make sure that we get that information right. That's probably a longer answer than you were looking for, but that's kind of what we're setting up, is to have there be an actual analysis and then bring that forward to you.
Okay.
So will this be like a collector? Because Evergy now is using collectors that are strategically placed on poles, and their units respond to that collector. If they can't that collector, they can't communicate with that one, they'll search for the next collector that they can find.
Yeah.
So is that,
I think there are two options. One's the collection system, and one is to use existing cellular networks.
okay,
And so that will be part of the analysis as well, is to understand what is the difference as far as those collectors. Because my first assumption had been exactly that way. We use those kind of pole-mounted boxes that would read from the meters.
Right.
But they brought up, well, there's also units that can hook into the cellular network and transmit the data back that way. And so I want to understand what the difference is in cost. I mean, how much would we have to pay a cellular provider for that?
Right.
Versus, what would it take to install and maintain the other boxes? So we would have our own independent network bring it back. But we want to make sure that, again, that we understand what the cost and maintenance will be associated with each of those.
sure. I never got around to making it to Howard. I've been promising them I'd go over there and go with him when they go through and read their water meters on their system, but I think their system's been in place for maybe going on 2 years, coming up in maybe January, February, and they've had really great success with it. But they were only looking at, I think, maybe 800 or 900 meters. It was a very small system, but the city clerk that I talked to said they were having very good success with what they had put in. They were very pleased with the system. And so I just never made it around to go over there and see the process. Maybe I will here before too long.
And I think both of these will increase our ability to give customer service, to the water customers. So I think it will help the city as well, and I think it will help the consumer as well.
I think their system has a little battery in it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then I think it's an antenna, maybe. I'm not sure. It's been a long time since I've talked to them about that. Anyway, okay. Okay. Good.
And let's see, one grant coming up, and this is kind of below the gray line. We're looking at working with Lochner to bring a proposal before the commission for an RCA related to getting some grants at the airport. We were looking at requesting funds potentially for terminal upgrades, and Lochner had a suggested paving maintenance program out at the airport that they thought that KDOT might be interested in funding. So these would be, again, some grant projects that we would bring before the commission. And that's those are really kind of the highlights of the report.
All right, commissioners, any further comments or questions for John?
I'm good.
I appreciate the report. Well, this is really beneficial for me to keep track of where all we're working and the status, and making sure we haven't overlooked something. It was kind of confusing with the number of projects and the different departments, but love the table. That's great.
When you start to look at the number of projects we have, and just this little table contains over 200 data points. And without something like this, I can't keep it straight.
Yeah.
And with this, so I'm with you.
It's great. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you very
Same here,
much.
John.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
All right, gentlemen, we've all had a chance to review the city board minutes for the Electrical Economic Development Advisory Board and Planning Commission Board of Zoning and Appeals. And moving through that, item number 7, city manager comments. Kelly?
I don't have any comments tonight, Mayor.
All right, Kelly. Item number 8, commissioner comments. Commissioner Hayes, do you have any comments you'd like to bring forth tonight?
I have none.
Commissioner Kaflish?
I have none.
And I have none also. David, do we have anyone that wants to speak to us tonight, public concerns?
No.
None. All right, then we are moving to item number 10, executive session. I make a motion that we move that we recess for an executive session for discussion of an employee's performance pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception, KSA 75-4319B1. The open meeting will resume at, how much time are we looking at? I got 6:45. 20,
15 minutes?
15 minutes? All right, is that good?
Indeed.
Okay, so we will resume the meeting at 7. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carried. Alrighty, the meeting is back in session and there was no action taken. So at this point, with all business has been conducted, I make a motion that we adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion carried. Thank you.